Hey Frag fam, what is going on? I hope you guys are doing well today. Elliot here, welcome back to The Fragrance Well. So we're gonna talk about a fan favorite of the autumn season in terms of fragrances, and that's gonna be amber fragrances. So as you guys are probably aware, amber is a fantasy accord in fragrances. There's nothing in nature that actually produces the amber smell that we are used to. Amber is typically made up of three main components. That's going to be vanilla, musk, and resins. The balancing of these three things is what creates the amber accord, and depending on how you balance them, you may get more of a powdery, sweet amber accord, you may get more of a spicy, earthy amber accord, or you may just get an overall kind of soft, pillowy amber accord, and that just depends on what ingredients you're using in terms of the amber ingredients and how you balance them. And I think that concept will be represented in the 8 fragrances I've got to showcase the amber accord today. And the great thing about the amber accord is it is extremely versatile, and you'll see that with these 8 fragrances I got, because even though all of these are definitely going to be overall considered amber fragrances, none of them smell anything alike. So let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Before we do, as always, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you do like this content, and hit that bell icon and enable notifications so you can be notified when I upload new videos. Let's get into it. All right, guys, the first one is coming from Rosendo Mateu. That's going to be number 5. Rosendo Mateu number 5. You can see there in the description, floral, amber, sensual musk. I think that is very representative of what you get here, mainly the sensual part. I think the amber accord in this is more musky than anything, very soft and pillowy, not overly sweet, but you do get a little bit of a sweet characteristic too here. Typically the resinous characteristic of an amber accord may add like a spicy, woody, or smoky characteristic, and I don't get a whole lot of that in this. So I think the resins are pulled back in this amber accord. In this fragrance, you have also got a suede leather-like characteristic coming from a pretty good amount of saffron, very nice soft saffron in here. Saffron can sometimes be a little bit edgy in fragrances. It's very well balanced in this one, so also has some leathery facets, so that's where that comes from in this fragrance. And this fragrance is very, very sexy, perfect for this time of year in terms of, like, say, a night out or a date night fragrance, and a wonderful amber scent in that regard. So once again, from Rosendo Mateu, this is number 5. All right, next one is coming from Mason Francis Kirkjohn. That's going to be Grand Soir. Mason Francis Kirkjohn, Grand Soir. So the amber nature of this one, I would say, is much more resinous and vanillic in nature. Maybe resinous at the forefront because you get a little bit of a spicy smokiness with this scent. But there's also plenty of vanilla, because I know on my skin, when this fragrance kind of just hits the complete dry down, all I get is vanilla. I don't really get much of anything else. But this is definitely a very amber forward fragrance. The entire characteristic of the scent is meant to represent an amber accord, and you can see from the color of the juice, I think that is done on purpose. Obviously, I don't know if when they mix all the ingredients together, if it naturally has this color. They probably put something in here to give it this color, but it's an amber color, and so that very much represents what this scent is trying to convey, and is, as you guys probably know, this is a fan favorite of a lot of people, so you know, it makes sense to be represented on an amber fragrance video. So once again, from Mason Francis Kirkjohn, this one here is Grand Soir. All right, guys, next one is coming from Prada. This is going to be Luna Rossa Black. Prada Luna Rossa Black. Now, if you know anything about Prada fragrances, they do powdery scents very, very well. And this one is more of a powdery amber fragrance with a pretty good dose of spice as well. I think the spice that is in this amber fragrance is not really coming from the amber accord. I think the amber accord is a little bit powdery, but overall a good balance between the 3 elements that tend to make up an amber fragrance. The powdery nature from a amber accord can actually come from the vanilla, and it probably depends on, you know, where the vanilla is sourced from and how it's used, etc., all that. So this fragrance definitely has a powdery facet, not too powdery, but it's definitely there. But yeah, you got a lot of kind of peppery kind of spice profile going with this, and some other floral characteristics that make up the whole scent. But it's a amber fragrance that kind of sits at the heart of the scent. Once again, from Prada, this is Luna Rossa Black. All right, guys, next one is coming from Parfum d'Empire. That's gonna be Ambre Russe. Parfum d'Empire, Ambre Russe. Now, the original amber fragrance is considered to be Ambre Peuchot, as far as I know. I don't own that fragrance, but I have smelled it, and I would say that this fragrance here took direct inspiration from that, the original amber, and that's very much represented in how this smells. That fragrance, though, was very, very powdery. This one, a little bit less of a powdery amber accord, and there's also just a lot of supporting features to this scent in particular. You got like a tea accord, you got a little bit of a spiciness, you've got overall kind of a resinous characteristic that I don't think really is a part of the amber accord itself. It's just another resinous characteristic to the scent overall, a little bit of kind of a woody characteristic to the scent, and not overall sweet, but it has that powdery nature to it, but I think it's dialed back compared to the original Ambre Peuchot, which was very, very powdery. So I do think if amber accords stayed powdery like they were in Ambre Peuchot, amber fragrances would not be as popular as they are. I'm glad people discovered ways to kind of play with that amber accord in different ways to create different things. So once again, from Parfum d'Empire, this is Ambre Russe. All right, next one is coming from By Kilian, and it's gonna be Old Fashioned. By Kilian, Old Fashioned. So this would be an example of an amber accord being used to create a slightly gourmand fragrance. And now with this one here, the amber accord is present, but it's more so the heart of the fragrance and is basically being the vehicle to give you what this fragrance is trying to convey, which is that of an old fashioned, a representative of an old fashioned. Because it is being used in a way to give you a slightly more gourmand take, I think it is a little bit more vanillic in nature than anything, but definitely present here because that just, like I said, it just kind of makes up the heart of the scent. But you know, this fragrance here, representative of an old fashioned, kind of has a whiskey alcohol kind of smell rather than bourbon, because either or can be used in an old fashioned, but I think this one's more whiskey oriented, has a little bit of the characteristic that represents maybe some of the cherries that might get put into an old fashioned, the citric element as well, and the bitters. All of that is present here to a degree in this version of an old fashioned represented by this fragrance, but all of it is tied together with an amber accord. So once again, from By Kilian, this is Old Fashioned. All right, next one is coming from Chanel, and this is gonna be Le Lion de Chanel. Le Lion de Chanel from Chanel, or the Lion, you know, I'm trying to pronounce it right. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Now this amber fragrance is definitely going to be, at least from what I've talked about, the strongest one in terms of resins, particularly labdanum. This has a very spicy, smoky, edgy amber smell. There is some vanillic characteristics to kind of balance it out a little bit, but I don't get much of a muskiness in this at all. It is not a soft amber fragrance. It's a very aggressive amber fragrance. The inspiration for this fragrance was the zodiac sign of Coco Chanel, which happens to be a lion, so that's why it's called Le Lion, playing on the Leo the lion birth month, which actually I share as well, so there's a little bit of a tie for me in that fragrance. But nevertheless, I really just enjoy the smell of this. I love that aggressive nature of it. I love that heavy use of labdanum, but this is going to be the style of amber that is not necessarily for everyone because it is so aggressive and kind of goes against what most people think of an amber fragrance being, which is warm and sensual and inviting. This one doesn't really quite have that. It's a little bit of a different take, but an amber fragrance nonetheless. So once again, from Chanel, this is Le Lion de Chanel. All right, next one is coming from Mancera. This one is going to be Amber Fever. Mancera Amber Fever. This is another use of an amber accord being used primarily to give a gourmand effect. This fragrance is very, very sweet, very candied, like obviously other things other than the amber accord are being used to represent that, but that's the style of the fragrance. Also has a little bit of a boozy characteristic to it. This fragrance is almost like taking some hard candies, dumping them into a bottle of whiskey or vodka or something of that nature, and then removing the candies 24 hours later. That's kind of what this fragrance kind of smells like to me. It's like a good time, but be careful, it'll get you into trouble. As far as the amber accord goes in here, I would say this one's going to be a little bit more vanillic in nature and musky in nature, much less of the resinous characteristic compared to Le Lion. So that's what I think allows for this fragrance to have its soft nature and its very gourmand and sweet nature. Obviously, there's other sweet notes to really accentuate the sweetness in this, because otherwise at that point it may not necessarily be an amber fragrance, but the amber characteristics are here. So once again, from Mancera, this here is Amber Fever. All right, the final fragrance for this video is going to be coming from Initio Parfums, and this is Blessed Baraka. Initio Parfums, Blessed Baraka. So this is an amber fragrance, of course. I would say the amber characteristic of this one is basically balanced. A little bit sweet in nature. I think there's just other sweet notes to, accentuate the sweetness. But as far as the amber characteristic goes, it's a good balance between those three elements: vanilla, resins, and musk. Also, this one is accompanied with some white blossoms to give a little bit of a not a powdery, but a floral nature to the scent, but a collection of white florals, if you will, and a good amount of sandalwood to add a more sensual woody base to this scent. Great stuff for the autumn season, a good representation of a balanced amber fragrance in my opinion. Once again, from Initio Parfums, this is Blessed Baraka. Alright guys, that is going to do it for this video. Let me know down in the comments below if you are a fan of amber fragrances and what some of your favorite amber fragrances are. There are obviously a plethora of them within the community because the Amber Accord is such a versatile fragrance ingredient. Thanks again for watching all the way into the end. I really do appreciate you guys. Please remember to be well and smell well, and I'll see you in the next episode of The Fragrance Well. Have a good one.